For over 1,000 years, monks living in the mountains of Tibet, China, and Japan maintained extraordinary physical power without a single gym, without protein shakes, without modern medicine. They trained at high altitude. They fasted for days. They moved with the strength of men half their age, well into their 60s, 70s, even 80s. So what did they know that modern men have completely forgotten? Monasteries weren't just places of prayer. They were living laboratories where men spent their entire lives mastering the connection between mind, body, and energy. In ancient China, Shaolin monks trained for 6 to 8 hours a day. In Tibet, monks practiced breathing techniques so advanced that modern researchers can barely explain what happens to their bodies during them. Meanwhile, today, the average man is exhausted by noon. His testosterone is lower than any generation before him. His stress is chronic. His sleep is broken. Something was lost, and we're going to find out exactly what it was. The first thing you need to understand is how ancient monks thought about energy, because it's completely different from how we think today. In traditional Chinese medicine and Taoist philosophy, there is a concept called Jing, sometimes translated as vital essence or life force. Monks believed that every man is born with a fixed reserve of this energy. And here's where it gets interesting. They believed that reckless living, chronic stress, poor sleep, and excessive stimulation all burned through this reserve faster than the body could restore it. Sound familiar? So their entire lifestyle, their food, their breathing, their sleep, their training, was built around one goal: protect and rebuild this internal energy, not just spend it. Modern science doesn't use the word Jing, but it does have words like cortisol, testosterone, mitochondrial function, and nervous system regulation. And the monks, it turns out, were targeting every single one. You don't build the physical power of a Shaolin monk on fast food and energy drinks. The monks understood something about food that we're only now relearning through nutritional science. They ate simple, but they ate strategically. Ginseng root, used for over 2,000 years in Chinese monasteries, has been studied extensively for its effects on stamina, blood flow, and what researchers now call adaptogenic properties, meaning it helps the body handle stress without crashing. Ashwagandha, a root used in Ayurvedic tradition across India's ancient monasteries, is now one of the most studied herbs for supporting healthy testosterone levels and reducing the cortisol that destroys them. In specific herbs, the monks followed one rule almost universally. They ate to support the body, not to entertain the mind. Minimal processed sugar, minimal alcohol. Meals were intentional, not emotional. Modern research now confirms that chronic inflammation, driven largely by processed food, directly suppresses the hormones responsible for male energy and sexual health. The monks didn't have the word inflammation, but they avoided it anyway. Here is something most men never think about. The quality of your blood circulation determines almost everything about your physical performance, your endurance, your recovery, your sexual health, your mental clarity. And monks were masters of circulation, not through medicine, but through breath. Tibetan monks practice a technique called tumo, sometimes called inner fire breathing. During this practice, researchers at Harvard measured monks generating enough internal body heat to dry wet sheets draped over their bodies in a freezing room. That's not mythology. That was published in the journal Nature. Shallow chest breathing, which is how most men breathe chronically, keeps the nervous system locked in a low-grade stress state. That state keeps cortisol elevated. Cortisol suppresses testosterone, and low testosterone means low energy, low drive, and poor circulation. Deep, slow breathing, 4 to 6 breaths per minute, activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Heart rate variability improves. Nitric oxide production in the blood vessels increases. Nitric oxide is the same molecule that modern blood flow supplements try to stimulate. The monks just breathed. Modern men treat sleep like a luxury. monks treated it like training. They understood, centuries before sleep science, that the body does not build strength during exertion. It builds strength during recovery. Every repair, every hormone release, every cellular regeneration happens while you sleep. Testosterone in men is almost entirely produced during deep sleep, specifically during the deep slow-wave stages that most men are cheating themselves out of. Ancient monasteries enforced sleep discipline with the same seriousness as physical training. Lights out at sunset or shortly after. Wake before sunrise. No stimulants after midday. The bedroom was sacred, dark, cool, silent. Today, the average man goes to bed with blue light in his eyes, a stimulated nervous system, and cortisol still elevated from the day, and then wonders why he wakes up exhausted. The monks weren't sleeping more because they were lazy. They were sleeping precisely because they understood that a rebuilt man is a powerful man. Monk training was never about aesthetics. No one cared about a six-pack. The goal was functional, sustainable power. Shaolin monks were known for conditioning drills that built full-body tension, joint integrity, and cardiovascular endurance simultaneously. Things modern exercise science would call isometric training, functional movement, and zone 2 cardio. They walked everywhere. They carried weight. They held positions until their bodies shook. Tibetan monks incorporated cold water exposure as a form of vascular training, plunging into glacial rivers to force blood circulation and build what they called inner fire. Research now shows that deliberate cold exposure triggers norepinephrine release, a compound that improves mood, focus, and metabolic rate. It also improves vascular tone, the strength and elasticity of blood vessels, which is directly connected to circulation and male sexual health. The monks weren't trying to look powerful. They were building systems, cardiovascular, neurological, hormonal, that kept their bodies functioning at a high level for decades. The training was never the point. The result was. For a long time, Western medicine dismissed ancient practices as folklore. But over the last 30 years, the research has quietly caught up. Harvard studies on Tibetan meditation showed measurable changes in brain structure after consistent practice, the same kinds of changes that regulate stress responses. Clinical trials on ashwagandha, the herb those Indian monks used daily, have shown statistically significant improvements in testosterone levels and stress hormone reduction in healthy adult men. Research on ginseng has demonstrated improvements in exercise endurance and, separately, improvements in markers of male sexual health. Studies on cold exposure have confirmed the boost in norepinephrine and the improvement in vascular function that monks seem to instinctively understand. And the research on sleep, particularly the relationship between deep sleep and testosterone production, has become one of the most replicated findings in endocrinology. None of this requires a monastery. None of this requires leaving civilization. It requires a decision to take the body seriously. The monks made that decision every single day, before sunrise, in the cold, in silence. The information was never the problem. The commitment was.